Hello and welcome. In this section, we're going to talk about Bruin MCPs, how to use them, how to integrate them into our AI agents, and fully utilize an AI data engineer. An MCP at its core is a model context protocol. So it's essentially a way for AI agents to add additional context when they're being prompted. So think of Bruin MCP as just a way for the agent to communicate with Bruin, to ask its documentation about different concepts, different features, and be able to actually run some commands on your behalf, and also be able to go through your code, troubleshoot it, understand what's going on, help you debug things, as well as run queries and analyze data for you as well. There are a few different ways of installing the MCP depending on the type of agent that you're using. We have integrations with Cursor, Cloud, and different agents. So you can take a look at our documentation to learn about how to integrate it. But in this tutorial, I will show you how to add it to Cursor, and we're going to go ahead and use it and build the pipeline together. With the Bruin MCP and an agent, you can go ahead and write code, write documentation, troubleshoot things, analyze data, and have an AI data engineer next to you as you're developing things.
All right, so to install the Bruin MCP on Cursor or VS Code, all you have to really do is go to your IDE settings. In my case, I'm going to Cursor settings. Under the tools and MCP, to add Bruin, you go to new MCPs. If you go to our documentation, you'll see the instructions for Cursor, and you want to just go to your MCP JSON and paste it over here. So once you have added that here, if you close this, you would be able to see MCP installed here. Sometimes it might show a failure or an error. All you really have to do is close your IDE and reopen it, and you will see Bruin enabled. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the entire project using the MCP. So let's start off with initializing our template. Now that it's created our pipeline, if we go to the README file, you will see that we have given you an example prompt that you can give to the agent that will create the entire pipeline end-to-end for you. So let's go ahead, copy that over to our agent. I'm not going to add anything else. So now let's just wait a few minutes for it to go through the whole thing, create our entire project, and then we will review it. So in this case, we're giving it a huge prompt to just go ahead and build the pipeline end to end and test everything, run it, validate the data. In a normal process, you might not want to do this, and you will most likely want to go asset by asset or even pieces of code at a time in order for you to use the agent to help you generate some of the code, help you configure the Bruin assets so that you're involved in every single design choice and decisions made about the code. All right, so it's gone ahead and created the entire pipeline for us now. In the prompt, we instructed it to validate and run everything end to end, and also run the custom checks in order to validate the logic of the queries as well. So at first glance, I can see that it has made one small error by creating the Bruin pipeline again, but we can just go ahead and clean that up. So as instructed, it ran the entire pipeline and processed only a single month of data just for testing. And it has also ran some queries using the Bruin query command. And it has verified some of the data by doing some basic checks as well. This is in addition to the quality checks added inside the assets as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the assets created, starting off with the ingestion assets. In this Python asset, let's just accept the changes. So looking at the Python ingestion asset, we can see that it has configured the asset correctly. It has given it the name, the type, image, and it has set up the materialization as a table with append strategy, so any new data will get appended to the table. And it has also generated some of the column metadata as well for us. Right, looking at the Python code itself, it looks like in this case it has put everything inside a single function. It is the materialize function, which the Bruin Python materialization strategy requires in order to get the data frame and create it inside the destination database. It has set our environment variables, so the Bruin start and end dates, and the taxi types from variables. Set up the base URL, and it looks like it is creating a list of all the data frames in order to append them all together later. And it is doing a loop where it's going month by month using the Bruin start and end dates to generate the URL and fetch the Parquet files and put them inside a data frame and add that data frame to the all frames list. And It is also doing some normalization, so different taxi types, the green and yellow, have different columns, so it is unifying them by creating the pickup and drop off date times for us. And it is also adding the taxi type and the extract data time, which are not already in the table itself. It appends the data frame to our list. It does a check to make sure that the list is not empty, and if it's not, it concats all of the data frames together and returns the final data frame. For our Python ingestion, it has also created the requirements file for us. All right, so quickly looking at the other assets it has created the seed asset as well, given the CSV file that we have there. It has configured it correctly as a DuckDB seed asset. All right, now moving on to the staging asset. It has created the DuckDB SQL asset. It has set the dependencies correctly to the ingestion assets. It has set the materialization as time interval strategy. So that means that it will essentially delete the data previously in the table based on the incremental key, which is the pickup date time here. And for that specific time interval, so using the Bruin start and end date, it will delete data where the pickup date time is in between that interval and reinserts that for that time frame. It has also generated the full list of columns with some quality checks, as well as a custom check to make sure that there's no duplicates given the aggregation level of this table. One thing to keep in mind about the time interval strategy is that the way that Bruin will compile and parse this query is that if we take a look at the panel and look at the preview of the query, we can see that it begins a transaction, it deletes from our table where the pickup date time, so that's the incremental key, is between the start and end date that is chosen for that specific run, and then it will insert data given the query that we have provided. So the result of this query will essentially get inserted into our table, and that is why it's important for us to always filter our data given the Bruin start and end date, and you have to add this as a filter inside your query using the same incremental key as well. All right, looking at the final report, again, it has set up our materialization strategy, set up the dependencies correctly as well, and our column metadata, and it has done a simple aggregation at the trip date, taxi type, and payment type level, and it has also correctly filtered the incremental key using the Bruin start and end date. Now taking a look at our lineage here, we can see that we have the full pipeline, all the dependencies created. All right, so let me show you one more cool thing that we can do with the agents, with the MCP, is that you can have a conversation with it. And this is really helpful when you want to query the data or you want to troubleshoot something. So let's go ahead and let's say query the staging table and tell me how many days of data we have. So it ran the query for us and it's telling us we have 31 days of data, which is correct because we only process data for 1 month. Now let's ask it another question. For example, which day had the highest number of trips and total fare? So it understands the context, it knows how to query the table, and it went ahead and did it by doing a sum and a group by and a limit in order to get the top 5. And you can also ask it questions about the pipeline itself. So this is really helpful for data engineers or anyone else that wants to understand the pipeline, wants to ask it questions about the logic of the pipeline. So let's go ahead, for example, and ask, in which asset are we aggregating data? It is correctly saying that in the reports asset, that's where we are aggregating the table, aggregating the data to the trip date, taxi type, and payment type level. All right, so that's an overview of how to use the MCP to generate your pipelines, ask it questions about Bruin, about your pipeline, about the data, and be able to just run queries using natural language instead of having to write the queries yourself for these types of ad hoc analysis or troubleshooting.